You are listening to the Happier Life podcast. I'm your host, Claire Deacon. After deciding survival wasn't enough, I set out on a path to live my best life. I wanted to thrive. Now I'm on a mission to support others. Think you're not good enough, confident enough, brave enough? I'm here to tell you you are, and you can achieve anything. This is your time, so let's do this. Hello, and welcome to the Happier Life podcast. What a week it has been since the last episode. Firstly, thank you to everyone who has reached out to let me know you are listening. It's been great to get your support and to hear your views on what you'd like me to cover in these episodes. Keep sending those suggestions through to me. Obviously, this is a new part of my journey, so it'll be interesting to see how it evolves over the course of the next few weeks and months. I'd also like to thank everyone who's contacted me this week with their words of kindness as I reach another anniversary without my Superman. Thank you so much. It really does make a difference receiving your kind messages. Not only do I feel loved and supported, but it also makes me smile that Dave had such a positive impact on so many that he will never be forgotten. So cheers to Dave. Hope you're listening. We miss you every day. So, back to today's podcast. What are we going to cover? Well, there are so many things I want to cover, but something that keeps coming up for friends and clients recently, and really is one of the biggest and overarching of self-limiting beliefs, are feelings of low self-esteem or self-worth. It holds so many of us back from fulfilling our dreams and from reaching our full potential. It's one of the key reasons why I developed the Reconnect program at Happier. Feelings of low self-esteem or not being good enough, a lack of confidence, they're all related to each other. It's one of the biggest barriers also in individuals recovering from trauma and adversity, the inner feeling of not being good enough and deserving enough to be happier and to live a better life. People are constantly asking themselves, am I good enough? Am I worthy enough? Smart enough? Brave enough? Rich enough? Thin enough? The list goes on. Well, I'm here to tell you, you are enough. In fact, you are all damn fine and fabulous. So what is it that holds us back? Why do we hold these beliefs about ourselves? Ultimately, the standards by which we hold ourselves to, including the endless chase for self-worth, are all compounding our feelings of low self-esteem. Social media and our perception of the world around us is filtered, not only in terms of the messages it gives us, but also in how it is presented. The algorithms in the software are working much like our own brains. As soon as we become aware of something in our conscious, our brains are conditioned to keep looking for evidence to validate our thinking. So if you believe you aren't good enough, your mind is actively seeking proof to demonstrate you aren't. Just like the algorithms of social media, once you click on that link for the latest self-tanning product because you are curious, suddenly you are inundated with constant messaging around the same topic. Another reason not to allow your kids to use your phone. A lesson learned after letting my son use my phone to check out the football scores. I subsequently received endless social media football posts and updates. These filtered and selective insights into the world lead us to believe that everything else is all shiny and sparkly, except ourselves, who are left behind, outdated, a little shabby and unkempt. But you know what? That little bit of shabby, those lines on our foreheads, the vulnerability, the flaw, is what is also known as character. Being the people who we are is what makes us more lovable. It's what makes us unique. It's part of our identity, and it's all part of our journey. But reassured, you are certainly not alone in these feelings. I grew up in a world where I felt it was made clear I was not good enough. I was not even good enough to be allowed to be honest about my emotions. I was not good enough to be allowed to share what was going on in my life through fear and shame. I was not good enough because I didn't have all the things the other kids had in my class. And on top of that, I did not conform to expectations. I stood out. And to top it off, if I wasn't good enough, I was too much, Too tall, too loud, too fat, just too much, and yet not enough. I was even told by one teacher at 10 years old I was not good enough and I wouldn't amount to anything. Yes, a person who was in a position of authority and power, who was supposed to be caring and considerate, who knew what was best for children, actually pulled me aside from the rest of my classmates to deliver that message to me. And it wasn't about academic results, it was personal. And I didn't even tell anyone. Why? Because if I'd said it out loud, if I restated what had been said then, maybe it would be true, and other people would start coming to me to tell me he was right. So if I kept quiet about it, maybe it wouldn't come true. At the time I didn't consider its impact, but in doing the inner work as part of my recovery and in being a parent myself now, I would certainly have responded differently. I'm not entirely sure why a grown man was so threatened by a 10-year-old that he felt compelled to say that, but after years of questioning myself what I had done to make him say it, I finally realised it wasn't me, it was him. It was his past, his self-limiting beliefs that obviously I triggered for him. I was taller than him, and his teaching style was one of fear that simply didn't work on me, so perhaps he felt threatened by that lost 10-year-old who was simply trying to survive in a world that often didn't feel too safe. To be honest, he's not really worthy of my consideration. So my belief I wasn't good enough started at a young age. I learned to be tough, outspoken, to hide my inner vulnerability, and became a bit of a comedian. I was taller and wider than everyone else. I had already started the process of eating my emotions when I was at primary school. And all these things just reinforced how I felt about myself. I hid behind the tough exterior so nobody could see how scared and vulnerable I was. I didn't deserve to hold any positive feelings about myself. But the reality was I was brave. I was a survivor. I was funny, smart, kind, caring, considerate, resilient, and a great shot at netball. I had the strength of character that meant no matter what that teacher had said, I wasn't going to let him win. I was going to try my best. And I can also tell you that a year after I left that school, when I was 12 years old, I went back to the school to tell him he was wrong. His response? He blanked me. I'd love to be able to get in a time machine and high-five that version of myself. So no matter your story, you are enough. The fact you have navigated your journey to this point shows you are enough. We have all faced adversity and some will have experienced trauma. Globally, the last few years have presented endless challenges, but you have survived. You have achieved some great successes along the way. Some will have achieved great newsworthy things, jumped out of a plane, raised incredible sums for charity, got the promotion, bought the dream house, run the marathon, overcome illness. But there are also those who feel less newsworthy and yet who have fought every day just to survive, to breathe in and out and function. Who's to say that achievement is any the less? Was it a greater achievement for me to receive my master's or to get out of bed on the day of my husband's funeral? I know which one took greater strength. No matter your story, you are enough. Perhaps at times you feel beaten, as though life just never gets easy. You can't remember when you last relaxed or could even fully enjoy life. When did you last spend time just being or doing something you love? For some it may be a distant memory, that you're not even sure what that was that used to make you laugh. Perhaps you feel as though you want more. You should be doing more, achieving more. Maybe you've spent so long with these thoughts that perhaps you are not even sure you are worth more. Perhaps you are emotionally drained and disconnected from the life you are living. Maybe you're surviving. You're trying to hide the emotions deep within you, the hope that you will find satisfaction one day, or it's a phase you're going through. Perhaps you're telling yourself you're just tired. When you tell yourself to just suck it up and stop whining, you are again reinforcing that belief that you're not good enough. You are not worthy of rest. You are not worthy of having an easier life. Or how many times have you cancelled your downtime, your time to relax, your time to do something for yourself. So many clients come to me saying they don't have time for their own self-care as they prioritise the needs of others. In working with a client recently, we were reviewing their schedule to identify where they could find the time to implement some changes in their life. It soon became clear all the activities involving their husband, children, family and friends, and the general running of the household were all things that were written in permanent pen. They couldn't be compromised, missed or moved, but anything related to something for herself were erasable. If you want to feel worthy, if you want to feel good enough, stop writing your needs and wants in pencil and get the permanent marker out. Stand up for yourself. Tell yourself you are enough. What are you going to write in? It is inevitable, especially if you have children, that their needs are going to be important to you. But they also need a parent who is energised and happy. They learn from you and how you treat yourself. Teaching them to consider others is important, but it is also important for them to consider themselves and their needs. Seeing you ignore your own needs is what they will come to believe they should be doing in their adulthood. Not giving yourself the time to renew your energy to fulfill your needs and wants relates to the topic of boundaries, another issue often raised by clients and one I will cover in another podcast episode. Let me know if this is something that affects you too. Each time you deny yourself what you need and desire, and I'm not talking about those aspirational wants, we can get to those. I'm talking the basics. Like if a friend said to you they wanted was someone to listen to them for 30 minutes, you drop everything and do it. Each time you deny yourself, you are empowering your inner critic. You are telling yourself you are not worthy. You don't deserve to come first. You are not good enough. So let's make the change. Now is the time for you to be your own best friend. And when you hear yourself expressing a need or want, you need to start answering that call. Find the time. Acknowledge what it is you are asking for and what is making you feel that need. If you don't listen to your needs, not only will it result in a lack of self-esteem and self-worth, but it will also seek other ways to get your attention. Think of a child asking you for something. The more you ignore them, the louder they get. Not listening to your psychological needs can also present itself in physical symptoms too. When you lack self-esteem, you play small. You do what needs to be done to stay safe and hidden. When faced with the results of playing small, it reinforces those feelings of not being good enough. By playing small, you won't take the ambitious action. You haven't believed in yourself, so maybe you aren't worthy. You haven't taken the action, so you haven't realised this success. You haven't reached your potential, so you don't have the evidence of the achievement. You are keeping your inner power hidden. It is only when you take the action that things start to change. I'm evidence of this. It is only through stepping up and taking action that I managed to recover from my own trauma. I have since scientifically researched and studied the topic to understand what the difference is between those who fall into a state of helplessness opposed to those who thrive. Having the belief in yourself to make the change, to take the action, was statistically proven to make a difference. Those who believed in themselves that they could make a difference were living happier lives, had experienced more growth, and were fulfilling their potential. So I want you to forgive yourself for playing small. Forgive yourself for the action and inaction you have taken so far. It's time to look forward and map out your next journey. For anyone who's read My Dad Thinks I'm a Fairy, you will know in there I talk about how I was holding the prison door shut myself. I was keeping myself small because I didn't consider myself worthy. I was filled with fear that I wasn't enough, and if I opened that door, my fears would be proved right. But here I am. I opened that door and left that cage behind. Turns out that cage was one I had put there myself. I could leave at any time. So if you're holding yourself back, if you are playing it small, I want you to ask yourself, what is your story? How are you not enough? How are you too much? What is holding you back? Why are you not worthy of success? And who is telling you this? Have you actually heard them tell you this? If they have, you might want to question whether they are really there for you. Often when challenged, the thoughts you have about what someone thinks of you are actually in your own head. They are stories you are telling yourself, and you may be attributing them to someone or something. Remember what I said about brain's ability to seek out the evidence to support our assumptions? We automatically seek out proof of what we believe and ignore anything that doesn't fit. So unless you've actually heard them say it to you, unless you have the evidence, you don't actually have the right to know what they're thinking. Their thoughts are theirs and should remain so. And simply because someone has an opinion of you, it actually doesn't make it true or valid. It's an opinion. Your normal isn't my normal. Your opinion is based on your experience and knowledge, and mine is based on my own. So it's okay to be different. It's okay to have a different opinion. If we all thought and did the same, wouldn't life be boring? And in fact, we wouldn't actually be at all. We would be extinct, which proves the point that we should all continue to fight for who we are, because that's how not only do we survive as individuals, but it's also how we grow and evolve. When you start to explore your own story, you may begin to feel overwhelmed. So when you need to take a break, allow it to sit with you. Do some meditation, drink some water, sleep, listen to music, whatever calms your mind. Take your time. After all, you've taken a lifetime to get here. You won't be able to explore and process all of that in a short space of time. But make sure you come back. Remember, you are the most precious thing worth investing in. This time, you aren't letting go of your dreams. You know you are worthy of more. You see others who are successful, who are happy, and you want and deserve that for yourself. We can spend a lifetime of believing we are not enough, that we have to hide parts of ourselves because otherwise we would not be accepted. I've already outlined how for the majority of my life I felt as though I was in the wrong room. I had people around me that told me that. Sometimes I was being held back by people who wanted to keep me with them on the outside. But ultimately, I was doing that all for myself. There are lots of reasons why I felt I wasn't allowed to be in that room. I'm too fat, I'm too poor, I'm not clever enough, not blonde enough, I'm too tall, too smart, too messy, too planned, too driven, too opinionated. Yes, I am too. Too much and not enough, all at the same time. But I am absolutely perfect in the right amount. Whilst we believe we aren't good enough or worthy enough, we will fail to recognise our successes. We will avoid celebrating our wins in case we are uncovered as a fraud, or that it will highlight all of the areas we feel we are not good enough. We compound this lack of acceptance through our own judgment and the perceived judgment of others. How many of our judgment stories are real, though? Without addressing these unhelpful beliefs, we continue to push on through, believing if we just push harder, do more, give more, we might just make it. We are designed to seek approval. The survival of our species is based on the strength of the community we build. We are taught this in our behaviours growing up. Conforming, being the best, and achieving high grades at school provides us with praise and recognition. Well, that's how it's designed to work anyway. But without that enforced infrastructure in our adult lives, where do we get that proof? We end up comparing ourselves to others. We may be able to forgive others for their flaws. We celebrate them for trying their best. But do we actually offer that same consideration and kindness to ourselves? A lack of self-acceptance can leave us feeling anxious and overwhelmed. Whilst medication and breathing techniques, etc., can all relieve us from the symptoms, they do not fully address the underlying belief system. We are left exhausted in all areas of our lives. It affects our overall well-being and happiness. So if you haven't already figured it out, you are already enough. You do not have to prove anything to anyone else. All that you are, accept. You are perfectly imperfect. So if you want to improve your self-esteem and feelings of being good enough, Take time to acknowledge your story. Understand the source of those beliefs. Challenge the judgments you hold and ensure you have appropriate boundaries in place. Then start listening to your needs and stop playing small. It's time to take action and live your best life. For those who want to explore further a number of the topics I have discussed in this podcast episode, they all form part of the Reconnect programme. If this is something you would like to understand more about, get in touch. I will be shortly opening up a few more spaces where we will explore all of those feelings of self-doubt and help you reconnect with your inner power so you can identify your true passions and get yourself ready for the life you want to live. If you want to know more, contact me on Instagram @happiercoach or email claire@happiercoach.com. Thank you and see you next week. If you've enjoyed this episode, ensure you hit subscribe, head on over to my website happiercoach.com, sign up for the weekly newsletter and let me support you in living a happier life. I'm your host, Claire Deacon. Thank you for listening. Have a fabulous day.